Running is so often called the cheapest sport. You just throw on a pair of trainers and go, right? But when you plan something big, it suddenly has a habit of turning into an investment. Something like the London Marathon, perhaps. The race entry, that's just the start. Then you've got multiple other layers of added costs, from your trainers, race day kits, hydration vests, GPS watches, and that hasn't even factored in your travel as well. If you live outside of London, this could be massive, and staying in London nowadays can be huge as well. Some runners can be frugal. They can maybe get by on £1,000 if you're lucky. Others easily blow past 2,000. So today on Essentially Sports, we're breaking down the true costs of the London Marathon, whether you're a beginner or perhaps a semi-pro chasing that coveted PB, or even an elite runner who might be getting paid to show up. Spoilers, no one is running for free. Beginners might assume that race entry is cheap, but it's still a handsome sum of $69.99 if you live in England, or if you're an international runner coming from outside. You're gonna have to drop 225 golden pounds, which is certainly a handsome sum, and it's gonna stack up given the high cost of visiting the fine English capital. Semi-pros may qualify based on times or charity slots, and it's gonna be the same cost for them, but they may be entitled to perks like race packs or early starting positions. Now the elites, they don't pay. The race organizers want them there. These guys are the creme de la creme, some of the best runners in the world, and everything for them is sorted. This is a different ball game. But what a cool sport that you can run on the same track, the same arena as the very best in the world, just because you're a random person who fancies challenging themselves. So now let's talk travel costs. If we're looking at the beginners, you're probably going to travel up for the weekend. Ideally, you're looking to stay in a fairly budget-friendly hotel, unless you're a very wealthy man or woman. So we'll call this about 100-ish pounds a night. And in terms of food and sustenance, probably you're going to be keeping it fairly simple in between your carbo loading sessions. So we'll put this range about 300 to 500 pounds for beginners for race weekend in terms of travel, accommodation, and food. Probably coming from in and around London, or maybe coming from up north just to run your race at the weekend. For semi-pro runners, we're looking at a little bit more spend in this section. The race is going to be a huge part in your calendar. Of course, it's important for everyone, but at the semi-pro level, you're going to want to be within walking distance of the start line, no doubt. And if you're staying in central London, of course, costs are going to go up. At best, we're gonna put this around £200 a night for a mid-range hotel. Then in terms of food, you might wanna be treating yourself to slightly higher level, slightly higher end forms of sustenance, and maybe a fancy post-race meal to celebrate with your friends. That all being said, for the semi-pros, we're gonna put costs down as between £500 to £1,000 for race weekend, because of the additional accommodation costs, we reckon. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments throughout this video what kind of spend you have endured to complete the iconic London Marathon, because it is a little bit different for different people. We all have different tastes, and for some, we're pretty happy with secondhand gear and that kind of thing. Others love spending money on all the paraphernalia involved in running, and they get a massive kick out of it. For some, this is part of the fun. In terms of costs, as we mentioned before, there's a big difference between the beginners, the semi-pros, and the elite. They have it a little different. Their travel and accommodation are often sponsored, as we mentioned, by the race organizers or their personal sponsors. For them, the logistics are usually top-notch, and they don't have to worry about the financial burden of a hotel. They might stay in a luxury hotel with a team of support staff and everything from their meals to transportation is covered. So for the elites, this one is essentially free, my friends. This is the reward for being incredible at what you do. And their one focus is not on what they're spending, it is of course on the race itself. Now let's talk kit. Such an essential part of the racing experience for so many. People love to shop when they get stuck into marathon running. Now, if you're a beginner, you're likely gonna run in the shoes that you've practiced in, or you might treat yourself to a fancy new pair. Maybe you'll treat yourself to a new running vest or a pair of new socks for comfort. So we're gonna put the cost round about 100 to 150 pounds. For semi-pro runners, the fancy carbon plated ones you've been eyeing, which means 200 to 300 pounds. You'll also want a high-tech watch to track your performance. People are obsessed with these things, I swear. So we're racking up the cost of between 200 to 500 pounds for those semi-pros. And those elite runners, we are talking elite running shoes, all of the very best gear, custom kit, shoes for every occasion and condition. We're looking at a cost of between 300 and 600 pounds. You only want the best gear if you are the best runner. Makes sense, right? You got to give yourself every chance and you cannot afford to slip at the very highest level. Bearing in mind, these runners might have 2 to 3 pairs of shoes on race day. Similarly to elite footballers, they might have 2 or 3 pairs of football boots lying in the changing room for any given mishap, occasion, or condition change. Next, let's move on to nutrition. And this is such a broad topic because what people spend on their weekly shops can differ so much. So when we just focus on running fuel in terms of gels, supplements, energy drinks, we would put the beginners in a bracket of between 150 to 250 pounds as they look to fuel their body for the big slog. If we look at the semi-pros, they're of course turning more attention on to peak performance, so invariably they are spending a little more, between 300 and 500 pounds on electrolyte drinks, protein supplements, and perhaps investing in a little bit of meal prep for that recovery and looking to get them through those hard slogs, those harsh race days. So the semi-pros spending a little bit more, and the elites take nutrition up to a whole new level. They have specific meal plans. They might even have a personal chef. They can expect to spend anything between 500 and 1,000 pounds or more over the course of their training on fueling their bodies. Okay, we've touched a little bit on this, but this is the fun part. Tech and gadgets. People love this, I swear. The beginners, they no doubt will have already purchased themselves some form of Garmin or Apple Watch or some GPS tracking device to track their progress. And a lot of runners do like to splurge in this area. They want to track the heart rate. They need to measure all of that hard work. And these devices can set you back about 1,500 pounds, which is quite a lot of money for a lot of people. Now the costs involved for these can be 100 pounds for a basic one, or they can fly all the way to 1,000 pounds. So it really does depend on your budget. But nowadays, if you're running, it's almost inevitable that you're gonna want to be tracking your progress with some sort of device on your wrist. Other gadgets that runners might like to invest in that aren't totally necessary, but people seem to enjoy buying, are compression boots, running headphones, a heart rate monitor, and even perhaps some smart sunglasses if you want to feel like James Bond. As we say, not totally necessary, but a lot of people do enjoy adding on the paraphernalia. So this can rack up costs. You can chuck on another 500 pounds for that lot. So let's talk gym, physio, and recovery. Recovery, so important with distance running. If you're a beginner, you might want to keep it basic, some stretching, a little bit of yoga perhaps. YouTube might be perfectly sufficient, or some classes at the gym. But in terms of recovery, you might want to treat yourself to a few sports massages here and there. So we put the costs between 150 to 200 pounds. Of course, depends what part of London or England you're living in. Central London, hugely more expensive than the rest of the UK. Semi-pro runners probably stepping things up a little bit. More massages, massage guns, foam rollers, fancy a gym membership, for instance. So we're gonna put the cost down for those semi-pros at between 200 and 500 pounds. Again, weigh in, guys. What do you think? What did you spend when you were running a marathon? For elite runners, the recovery is just as important as the race itself, and they have access to the top professionals in their industries: massage therapists, recovery specialists, physios. Many of them have personal trainers and coaches as well, though a lot of these are sponsored. We're going to put these costs at ranging between 500 to 1,500 pounds sterling. Let's look at the total cost of running the London Marathon, the moment we've all been waiting for. So race entry, £69.99. Travel, hotel and food, £600. Training kit and shoes, £0 because I brought my own gear. Racing kit and shoes, £300 because I treated myself. Physio, massage, etc., etc., £250. Nutrition, £400. Tech, nothing, because again, I'm using my existing tech, so I'm not going to count this. And miscellaneous, let's put 50 quid. So for a beginner running the London Marathon, we're going to rock this at about £1,700. Now, comparing this to other major races like Boston, this actually isn't too bad. Boston can run you up around £3,000. It is much more expensive overall than running the London Marathon. Again, this can be quite subjective. How deep do you want to go? We'd love to hear from you in the comments section how much you guys spent when you ran the marathon. So guys, for a beginner, we reckon you can run the London Marathon and spend between £1,000 and £1,500 if you're keeping it tight using some of your existing gear. For those semi-pros, it jumps up a little bit to between £2,000 and £3,000. And then for those ladies and gentlemen at the very highest level of the sport, it can set you back between £3,000 and £5,000. But perhaps that doesn't matter, because is it your own money? Probably not, because you're so good at distance running, someone else is footing the bill. The crucial part really is how much do you want to spend? Really, you can kind of just rock up, pay your entry fee, eat vegetables, cycle there. You can keep things cheap if you want to, but often that's not the reality. Yes, you can crash on a friend's sofa if you have friends, running friends, but it tends to be different for everybody. We all come from all different parts of the world to celebrate one of the greatest marathons on planet Earth. We hope you enjoyed this video. We would love to know how those numbers stack up with your own experience. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and share your experience down below. This has been Essentially Sports, and we'll see you at the next one.